catch me howling at the moon.
What's up, guys, and welcome back to Park Pros. Today we're shifting back to the trip reports from my 2020 East Coast road trip, and in this video I'll be talking about my first ever visit to Dorney Park in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And then later on in the video, I'll be giving my opinion on the biggest thing that Dorney Park is missing. This visit came on a Sunday, the day after I was at Kennywood, so it was a pretty late night making that 4.5 hour drive across Pennsylvania in order to get to Dorney Park for opening. For this stop on the trip, I met up with my buddy Jack, aka Coaster John. Dorney is one of his home parks, so I got to experience the park with someone who knows it firsthand, which really enhanced my visit. Jack's a really good dude and creates some great content on both YouTube and Instagram, so go give him a follow. I'll leave his socials down in the description. Before we get to my overall thoughts on Dorney Park, let's start with the lightning round, with my thoughts on all of the coasters that probably won't ever end up getting their own review. We started the day off at Talon, which is one of these mid-level Cedar Fair B&M inverts. And surprisingly enough, this ended up being my favorite coaster at the park. Talon has a super original layout that uses the foliage and terrain around it really well. And even though it's one of the smaller B&M inverts out there, I was caught off guard by how intense this ride is. You really get pinned up into your seat on some of these helixes, but not really to the point where it's uncomfortable like on some of the other B&M inverts. I ended up liking this ride a lot more than Patriot at Worlds of Fun, which is probably Talon's closest comparison coaster. If you're a fan of B&M inverts, you'll like this ride. Really solid invert and best coaster in the park. The next coaster was going to be my 250th credit, and I wanted it to be Hydra, but the ride was down in the morning, so we settled for Steel Force. I already gave 10 minutes of my honest opinions on the Morgan Hyper coasters, including Steel Force in my video from a few weeks ago, so I don't really have anything new to say here. Steel Force is the best of its sister coasters in my opinion, but it's just an okay ride at best. Next up, we got on the historic 1924 PTC wooden coaster Thunderhawk. This coaster was basically what I expected it to be, a classy, dingy woody with some fun pops of airtime and some really painful turns. I had been warned that this ride was going to be pretty rough, but I didn't think it was too bad at all. Overall, nothing too special, a fun little wooden coaster, and if Dorney Park was my home park, I think this would probably be my favorite coaster in the park. Next up, we got on Hydra, the park's pretty iconic B&M floorless coaster. This has been a ride that's intrigued me for a long time because it's got that unorthodox layout and it has one of the best names and logos of any coaster out there. And of course, Hydra starts with that famous JoJo roll, which is not only such a creative way to start a coaster, but actually gives some nutty hang time. I think this coaster has one of the most brilliant B&M layouts out there. The ride flows so smoothly from element to element, and I like how the ride has more to it than just going from one inversion to the next. Unfortunately, the pacing of this ride is pretty bad, which means that the ride isn't very intense, and it is starting to suffer from a pretty harsh B&M rattle, which is a little disappointing because outside of those things, this ride has all the ingredients to be a coaster that I just absolutely love. But overall, I do like Hydra. I think it's a pretty solid ride, and it's probably my second favorite in the park. Next up, we knocked off the Mauer Wild Mouse coaster called Wild Mouse. I have nothing to say about this coaster besides that the wait was by far the longest of the day because of some pretty poor operations there. I also shamelessly got the park's kitty credit because there wasn't a line. Finally, Possessed, their Intamin Impulse coaster, was down for all of 2020, so I missed out on that credit. With all the coasters out of the way, let's talk about some of the things that I liked about Dorney Park. After being to both Valley Fair and Worlds of Fun, Dorney Park is about exactly what I expected it to be. These mid to lower tier Cedar Fair parks are really nice, well taken care of, and for the most part really enjoyable. And in all of my experiences at these smaller Cedar Fair properties so far, the parks hardly ever get slammed, so you're always going to have a good time and get a decent amount of rides in. I also thought that Dorney was one of the prettier Cedar Fair parks. Everything looks really good and a lot of the rides and areas have some really nice landscaping. I love that Dorney Park has Cedar Fair's old first generation Intamin drop tower called Demon Drop. I had never been on one of these types of drop towers before and it 100% lived up to the hype. I'll admit that I was even a little nervous on this thing because I had no idea how the ride cycle worked, and to be honest, it just looks so old and raggedy. The drop is short but very good, and because of the way the ride decelerates with that downward angle, you pull some crazy G's as you transition from upright to laying down. This is one of the most obscure amusement attractions out there nowadays, and I highly recommend getting on it because it's a ton of fun. And even though it is an old hand-me-down, I'm glad Cedar Fair gave Dorney this really unique attraction instead of just scrapping it. To sum up the things I like about Dorney, the park's operations were pretty decent, the park was clean, and like I said, overall I think this is just a really nice little park. Now on to the things that I did not like about Dorney, and there's really just one minor thing, and it's not even the park's fault. When you take a look at this park, the one thing that jumped off the page to me is that when Possessed is down, which seems to be a reoccurring theme, this park literally has just 4 major coasters in their lineup: Steel Force, Thunderhawk, Talon, and Hydra. If you came to Dorney Park on a dead day like we did, you probably would only have to be at the park for 2 or 3 hours max before you got everything done, especially because they don't have an elite, knock your socks off coaster worth marathoning. Even Dorney's sister parks, Worlds of Fun and Valley Fair, each have a really good GCI that's worth riding a bunch of times. When I look at Dorney's current lineup, I just don't see a coaster like that jumps off the page to me. I really hope that Cedar Fair follows through with the plans that leaked last spring to build a Gravity Group shuttle coaster at Dorney in the area where Stinger used to be. Even if it's at the expense of removing Possessed, a Gravity Group would be such a major upgrade for this park for a couple of reasons. First, this model is one of those few coasters out there that can provide a thrilling experience while also being family friendly. Looking at Dorney's current lineup, their only real option for mid-level thrill seekers are the Wild Mouse and maybe Thunderhawk. The second reason why a Gravity Group shuttle coaster would be a great fit is because with only one of these models installed so far in the US, this would be an extremely unique draw for the park. I know for me personally, it would definitely be enough to bring me back to the park within the next couple years. And third, Gravity Group does such a good job with these smaller scale coasters, it'd probably be the best or second best coaster in the park based on the proposed layout. If this wooden shuttle coaster eventually does become a reality, I think another great step for the park down the line would be something like a Premier Ride Skyrocket 2 or an SNS 4D Free Spin. Or if Cedar Fair really wanted to go crazy, a mock multi-launch coaster would be a great headliner for Dorney Park. I really hope that Cedar Fair does throw Dorney Park a bone within the next couple years, because this is a park that would benefit a lot from 2 or 3 decent coaster investments. To sum up my thoughts on Dorney Park, this is a really nice park and one of the better experiences I had on the trip. I don't really have anything bad to say about Dorney besides the fact that their coaster lineup is definitely lacking. I think Dorney Park shares almost every characteristic of most great to elite parks: charm, cleanliness, beauty, service, operations, and so on. But they just need a few more eye-popping coasters and rides to get there. That's it for my Dorney Park trip report. Please be sure to leave a like on the video if you've enjoyed, and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Thank you guys for checking out the video, and we'll see you all next time.